came into Prescott, I thought this is just an amazing city, because I came to Prescott 3 months before the 19 happened. And I saw this community, and I saw people pulling together, and I thought to myself, this is a community with all of the accolades and the closeness that we have, and nothing's perfect, but nevertheless, this is a place where we can actually make the first city with the most civility and the least amount of bullying. And I believe in you, and I know that as sisters and brothers, we can do this. And I plan to go to every club that I possibly can, every school that I possibly can, every church that I possibly can, and speak to everyone about these efforts. So, our first speaker tonight, I'm so proud to announce, is Chief Deborah Black.
Good evening, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you, Rhonda, for organizing this exciting event and starting a movement in Prescott, which is known as everybody's hometown, but maybe will actually earn it by collectively committing to what a hometown should be: a welcoming place, a welcoming, safe place where you can live, work, play, and be respected just the way you are. I believe we can become the city recognized as the most civil across the nation. And I would have to say the bar is set pretty low these days. Even small incremental changes are going to create a momentum that causes us, the good men and women and young women of Prescott, to stand out differently and be the change we wish to see in the world. The evidence of the damage caused by incivility is irrefutable. The constant background noise in our lives, otherwise known as the media, where disagreements, small and large, have fallen way to angry personal attacks, collectively drags everyone down to the lowest level of decency. Bullying, at its worst, is quite literally killing our kids, certainly psychologically harming them, and even in so-called minor cases, steals their joy, their confidence, and their hope for healthy relationships. To step into my world for a moment, aggressive driving, neighbor disputes, and hate speech all have seeds of disrespect or disregard for another and have roots in incivility. Over the past few weeks, I've had the pleasure of hearing two distinguished speakers from vastly different disciplines discuss incivility as one of the most pressing issues facing America today. Simon Sinek, noted author and of TED Talk fame, spoke to a room of 15,000 law enforcement leaders about the culture of our organizations and how a failure to address our inside issues related to employee engagement will only serve to perpetuate the external problems police departments are facing across the nation. Beyond policing or even government, failure to address corporate incivility is the biggest source of employee disengagement in the U.S., and it's costing us billions of dollars every year. Further, when employees are disrespected at work, it doesn't just affect that individual. It has a ripple effect to their friends, their families, and their communities. From a very different perspective, Pastor Bill Hybels of Willow Creek Church at the Global Leadership Summit called out an epidemic of disrespect in our country, and by way of solution offered 1 Peter 17, 3 simple words: respect, everyone, always. Pastor Hybels referenced a wonderful book titled Mastering Civility by Christine Porath, which I strongly recommend if you want to learn more about civility in the workplace. So why is civility so hard to consistently practice? Or to put it another way, what is so appealing about ridicule, harassment, and belittling others? What motivates people, sometimes otherwise good people, to generate attacks, either personally, anonymously, or electronically through social media, or bear witness as a form of entertainment, cheering on those who do? I, for one, do not believe that fostering civility in our homes, schools, workplaces, and community is that difficult. Full disclosure, I am an optimist at heart, and despite 37 years in policing, it's not that difficult for me to see the good in people, greet them with a smile, and genuinely wish them well. So here's what I believe is the key, and to borrow from Tolstoy, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. Folks, civility and respect have to begin with us, not some of the time, not only when we're with people we like or care about, not only when we might be seen or recognized, always. Modeling respect and civility by setting the example of how to disagree and have spirited conversations without literally or figuratively drawing blood is imperative to our kids' understanding of how to resolve conflict. It's just as important in our workplace and throughout the community. Almost as important as modeling the behavior is that we have to be intolerant of incivility if it occurs in our presence. It is said, and it is true, what you allow in your presence defines your character as much as the individual with the offensive conduct. We must face whatever is holding us back, making us fearful to confront bullying and incivility, and find the courage to take appropriate action. Burger King, yep, Burger King, the home of the Whopper, illustrates this nicely in a television ad with an anti-bullying message. To describe it briefly, many customers stood silently as a high school junior was shockingly bullied by other teens, but expressed outrage when a Whopper Junior they ordered was similarly mistreated. 95% stood up for the mistreated hamburger, while only 12% stood up for a high school junior they witnessed being bullied. It's an interesting approach, but raises the question, if we don't act, aren't we complicit in the continuation of disrespectful, uncivil, and bullying behavior? To quote Martin Luther King, for evil to succeed, all it needs is for good men and women to do nothing. So in conclusion, model respectful behavior, be intolerant of incivility in your presence, and finally champion this cause. Prescott can be known as a city with the least bullying and the most civility across the nation.
Perspective means we never know what is going on in someone else's life. It can always be much, much more, much, much deep. And that's one thing we have to accomplish in having civility in Prescott. There are not two sides to our world, to our people. There's not one political side and the other political side. There's not the good side and the bad side, depending on which side your perspective is. Everyone, like this man, has layers and layers and layers, like an onion. I mean, not to compare humans to an onion, but we have to think of the multifaceted diversity that we have and the different variables that have happened to us in our lives. People just don't know what's gone on. I moved a lot. I went to 5 high schools, skipping my junior year, going to 3 in my senior year. People had no idea because I had the facade of upper middle class, perfect family. They had no idea of the abuse that was happening in my family. And I want you to keep that in mind, because the next wonderful speaker that I'm going to get to introduce is such a blessing to our organization. She is our new young ambassador. Joe Howard and his board chose her to be the PUSD student representative. I could go on and on about all of her accomplishments, but Alexa Rosdell has some key human ingredients, including humility, which so many children today look as weakness. So, without any more comments about the brilliance of Alexa Rosdell, I'd like to welcome her up here as our next speaker.
I'm a dog enthusiast, a Chipotle addict, and everything else in between. I keep myself busy with student council as the governing board representative for PUSD and the youth ambassador for Rhonda Orr Stop Bullying Foundation. These involvements are precisely where my story begins. Today, I am standing here before you to tell you a story of how I was bullied. As I mentioned before, I am highly involved in student council. Student council is something that I'm very passionate about, and I have dedicated a lot of my time to. It was my junior year and student council elections were well underway. I decided to run for student body president against another opponent. Typically, the student body president candidates are required to give a speech over the intercom. But for some reason, our advisor wanted us to do it on a video over YouTube. You can probably see where the problem is going to become by involving social media into this election. Both my opponent and I approached our advisor and we said, hey, we're not really comfortable with this. We don't really have any guidelines. Can we just go back to doing a speech over the intercom? He was persistent and said no. So there was nothing that we could do, so we just said okay. When it was time to show the video voting day, students would watch our videos accordingly. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Shia LaBeouf's Just Do It video, but I had photoshopped my head onto his video, onto his body. My message was to the tone of his message, and his voice would come in and say, just do it. Let me remind you that both of our videos were innocent. They reflected both of our personalities. I got home from school that day and proceeded to look at all of the comments on my video. 33 of them. I began to scroll through each and every one of those comments. Each comment I read, it got blurrier as tears began to roll down my face. I broke down. There were ridiculing, inappropriate, vile, and sexually lewd comments left on my video. I thought that I had seen it all. This is real. This is something that happened on the Prescott High School campus. You know, we hear about all these crazy stories about people getting bullied, but I don't think we ever get a sense of perspective of what actually happened. It seems so surreal, and it's hard to grasp what humans are capable of doing. Now, I hope that you realize that there's a little bit of good in everything. That night, I started to receive text messages from acquaintances and people that I didn't even know. And they all went a little something like this. Hey Alexa, I saw those horrible things written on your video, and I just wanted to let you know that you're an amazing person, and those people are not worth your time. Or, hey Alexa, I know we don't really know each other, but I felt the need to let you know that you are awesome. Just please know that you mean a lot to a lot of people. I just could not stand by and read all those comments without saying something. It were these texts that were so simple, but yet changed my perspective. The thing that we often forget to do is to take a step back and look at the whole situation. The girl that had ran against me had similar comments on her video as mine. Those people were not targeting me. They were targeting somebody, and it just so happened to be me. People will say mean things, and most of us will take it personally. But I hope that you remember that what people are saying to you, they are saying the exact same thing to somebody else. Someone else is feeling that same sunken stomach as you are. You are not alone. You guys may or may not have heard of the story by Lauren Isley. It's the starfish thrower. Basically, in the story, there's a man who's walking on a beach, and there's thousands of starfish on this beach. A woman approaches him and says, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm picking up all these starfish and I'm throwing them back into the ocean." And the woman goes, "Sir, you can't possibly make a difference. There are thousands of starfish on this beach." The man bends down, smiles, picks up yet another starfish, throws it as far as he could into the ocean and said, "It made a difference to that one." It doesn't take much to make a difference. It doesn't take much to change a life. It can take 5 words in less than 30 seconds. For the people that left the awful comments on my video, it did not take much of their time. But I bet they do not realize how much their words can bring somebody down. For the people who decided to text me, reassuring me of everything that I'm capable of, it didn't take them much time either. And I bet they don't know how much light they brought upon me. So it's up to you. How are you going to let your words affect somebody else? Are you going to take the moment to let somebody know that they are worthy? Or are you going to bypass the opportunity to turn somebody else's world around? I promise you can change the world with just a few words, one starfish at a time.
We know that bullying, which is really the same as abuse. Bullying and abuse, when you go down the list, they're exactly the same. It's really only different in how people look at it, again, with perspective. And there's a thread from bullying into domestic abuse. So I went through that with my son's father. I prayed for 5 years to become pregnant every night. And finally, after many, many doctors, I became pregnant. And I was attacked while I was bedridden by my husband. And I started to pray. This is how skewed you get, because there's so many complexities involved when you're abused by your husband. And then I started to pray that I would love this man. Abusive husbands don't stop. The third time that he abused me was in front of my son. And I decided right then and there, my son was not going to live through that generational, cyclical cycle of abuse. So going back to bullying and abuse and what they mean, they fall under the umbrella of maltreatment. And under that umbrella, we just saw a movie in this community called Bully Fighters. It was an amazing movie. It was hard to watch in some aspects, but it brought about reality of what's happening today. And what I thought was horrible when I was young, that was a long time ago, that it's become so much worse today. To think that 160,000 students stay home from school. Now, I write a column, Dear Rhonda and Dr. Sherry. And I also do podcasts on those columns. And there are so many different situations that our students deal with. But bullying with these words, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're fat, why don't you go kill yourself? Oh, I was just kidding. I didn't really mean it. Oh, you're too sensitive. Don't worry about it. We're just saying that. But it's passive aggressive. And those kids can only be attacked. They are punches. And as Alexa mentioned, words can harm. And what I teach in the school, our communication is only 7% words. The other 93% of our communication is our body language, which is 55%, and our tone of voice, which is 38%. And I've been teaching that as a corporate executive for years and years and years. And it's still true. And now with social media, the way that it is, cyberbullying, it is so horrific. And the comments that Alexa got. Judge Hancock is one of our board members. And I was talking to her about the comments that Alexa had. They were so vile. I thought I'd seen everything. No. They were one-upping each other and being vile. So, my comment tonight, even though we think about how we're going to forgive those that harm us, because we have to heal us. How do we do that is really important, much more important than the why do they do that, although that's interesting to know, so that we can also go down a path of correcting it. So getting back to meeting Detective Tobin. He was the president of CCRT. I'm just going to call it CCRT. And there are like 90 members in this group. And the threat of bullying to domestic violence, and with his help, how it's really helped our community, our Quad City community. So, Detective Tobin, some of his accolades are, he began his law enforcement career in 1996 with the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office before joining the Prescott Valley Police Department. Since 2013, Tobin has served as the chairman of the Yavapai County Coordinated Community Response Team and the Domestic Violence Task Force. Please give him a warm welcome. He's also our treasurer for our nonprofit. Thank you, Detective Tobin.
Thanks for the intro, Rhonda. On the way, when I first got here tonight, I was talking to Captain Jimmy Kennedy of the Prescott Fire Department. His crew are here. I think they're still here in the back. I'll tell you a quick joke. I'm a police officer, obviously. My dad was a fireman. There's a lot of back and forth about policemen and firemen and all that stuff in my family. And so I was working in Prescott Valley. I was working a security detail at a hockey game. I was standing back against the wall, and the crowd was going by, and there's an older lady came by with a walker. And she was really having a hard time walking and getting by. And she walked past me, and I watched her. And as she got past me a few feet, she started to turn around, like make a U-turn with her walker. And started to come back to me, so I walked up to her. I said, "Can I help you with something?" You know, and I figured she, I didn't know what she needed, but I figured she needed something. So I said, "Can I help you with something?" And she said, "Yes. Do you know what policemen and firemen have in common?" I said, "No, ma'am, I don't." She goes, "When they were little kids, they all wanted to be firemen." But that was an opportunity for me to practice civility, because I didn't say what I wanted to say. And then I was walking in here tonight, I parked on Cortez Street, I was walking across the lawn, and a guy flagged me down. He said, "What are we going to do about people not curbing their dogs? The dogs pooping on the lawn over here. When are you guys going to do something about this?" And he goes, and he asked, and he said, "Why do people do it? Why don't they just pick up after their dogs?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Civility." And he looked at me like, "Huh?" So then I gave him Chief Black's cell phone number. I said, "Call her anytime, weekends." So I've been a police officer I've lived in Yavapai County for a long time. I've been a police officer for 22 years. And that sounds like a lot, but then I talked to Chief Monahan, who's got 38 years. Chief Black has 37 years. Jimmy Kennedy is a fire chief. He's a fire captain, 32 years. So I'm still a rookie. I'm still a new guy. And I have noticed, and this is just my opinion, my perception, as a police officer, as a community member, having lived here a long time, that we're in a very fractured and divided time right now. And it doesn't seem like it's enough to have an honest disagreement with somebody, a respectful disagreement with somebody, but that you have to hate that person, and hate their family, and hate everything they stand for. And it's overkill. And I think that's where we're at right now. And I think we need to get away from this age of overkill and ranting and raging and venting, and get back to common ground, which is what we all share, what we have in common. Focus on our the things we have in common, rather than focusing on the differences that we have. I mean, I don't see that we have any choice as a community to go forward. You guys are probably just about as sick of it as I am. So this here tonight is just a small thing to start the conversation and to model that behavior, like Chief Black said. Because I don't want to see it keep going like this. And that's really all I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight. And then I was thinking, okay, so that's my thing that I want to talk about. October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it's really interesting because my last 5 years I spent in Prescott Valley. I was in the Family Violence Unit and that CCRT that Rhonda mentioned, working on domestic violence issues and stalking and dating violence issues like that. And that was a eye-opening experience for me to learn about that and to learn so much from Chief Mommy. He's been a great mentor to me and everybody in this community on that topic. And prior to that, though, I taught bullying in the DARE program in Humboldt School District for 2 years. And it's interesting to me that when I went to DARE instructor school and they told us how to talk to 5th graders about bullying, they said you got to start out with some basic definitions. So the definition of a bully is somebody who uses their power to control somebody else. And I thought, where have I heard that before? Well, in the police academy, when we talk about domestic violence and domestic abusers, it's about the dynamics of power and control. And then we talked about, they told us you got to give them a definition of bullying. You got to give them a definition, and the next definition was followers. They said bullies always rely on followers. And followers are people that help the bully, support the bully, encourage the bully. They're not doing the bullying, but they're helping and supporting the bully. And then we spent a lot of time talking about bystanders. And the bystanders are the people that they're not helping, they're not hurting, they're just watching. They see what goes on, they know what's wrong, and they don't get involved. And so what I would encourage these kids to do is to go for, I said, we can eliminate bullying in this school. And I gotta tell you, I mean, you mentioned 160,000 kids a day calling sick. It is true. There's kids in our schools here in this town and in these towns right around here that are terrorized to go to school every day because of the way they're being treated by their peers. And how can you learn? How can you be enthusiastic about learning and going to school when that's what you're faced with? You know? So I would encourage the kids to go from being a bystander to being a good citizen. And the good citizen is somebody who does the right thing. And the right thing is, in terms of bullying, is intervene directly if you feel safe to do so. Number one. Number two, if you don't feel safe to intervene directly, tell somebody who can intervene directly. A parent, a teacher, a police officer, an adult, somebody. And the third thing, and maybe most importantly, if you can't do the first two things, then be a friend and support the person that's getting bullied. And sometimes you can do all three, and sometimes you can only do one. But everybody can do one of those things. And if we did that, we could eliminate bullying in our schools, and I really believe that. So a few years later, I was working with domestic violence in the family violence unit. I was on a radio show here in town. The guy asked me, the host, he said, so let's say I think I have neighbors, the Joneses, and I think they have a domestic abuse situation going on. What can I do about it? And without even thinking, I said, intervene directly. Just the same answers I gave the kids for bullying. Intervene directly if you feel safe to do it. Tell somebody or support the victim. I thought, man, that's interesting. There's the link, the thread Rhonda talked about. And we can fight that stuff. You know, I know Prescott is a good community. I know there's a lot of goodness in our community. But we can't sit back and wait for it to happen. Washington, D.C. is not going to fix it for us. Phoenix is not going to fix it for us. We need to do it. Starting here, starting now, tonight, neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street, community by community. And then we can get back to being the country we were supposed to be, I think. Just my opinion. I'm off the clock, Richie. So I just to wrap up, I know I said I'd be quick and I've probably been the longest guy so far, but I want to share a quote with you from somebody that I came across, which I thought was really appropriate to this event. It's from President John F. Kennedy, 1962. From a speech he gave at a university. It's called his Pax Americana speech, American Peace. I thought it was appropriate for tonight. So let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot now end our differences, at least we can make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this same small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal. I thought, man, that's appropriate, definitely. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming.
This man devotes an extraordinary amount of time to what he does. And tonight, he even brought this picture he's going to talk to us about to be offered as one of our raffles. So I would like to announce some of the people that have been very, very supportive of us before I have Chief Monahan come up here. Augie donated to our cause. Could you stand up, Augie? Is he here still? Oh, Gato Azul, please give them a big round of applause. All that wonderful food back there. Lamb Chevrolet, Bob Knudsen, could you stand up, please? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I gotta say, these guys are the greatest. I went to a couple of different car dealerships, and they just jumped on it. I walked in, and they were like all over it. Yeah, we can do this. Prescott can do this. And I know we can. There are fewer people here than I thought there would be, but if we are infectious about making a difference in our community, like Alexa talked about, and as Chief Monahan is going to address us tonight, I want to read a little bit about what Chief Monahan has done. He's been long actively involved in addressing the problem of violence against women. And I can't tell you how thankful I am for that. As I said, had all the wrong men in my life. And he even helped me out just recently. My ex-husband of 7 years ago just had, I finally reported him for rape and for attempted murder. And I gave a deposition, and this investigation has been going on for a while, and they released him after his deposition, and to the extent that there's not enough evidence. It makes me very, very sad because we still have to report. It is very, very important that our kids know they have to report it, and they don't report it. In fact, I have a column and a podcast, report, until somebody does something about it. They don't report it because they're going to get double bullied. They don't report domestic violence with their boyfriends because they think people won't believe that. So Chief Monahan has long been a proponent of the Start by Believing program. He served on the Pinal County Safe Home Network and was a member of the board of directors for Against Abuse Incorporated. He's been a member of the Pinal County Domestic Violence Coalition since 1996 and was instrumental in getting the Pinal County Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team started in 2006, also serving as one of the first co-chairs. Chief Monahan was appointed to the Governor's Commission to Prevent Violence Against Women in 2003 and reappointed in 2008, and then he served as the commission chair until December of 2013. One of the most loving and kind and yet strong personalities that just won't allow any more of this abuse, any more of this violence. Give him a big round of applause. Thank you.
I am so blessed to have 3 adult children, ages 38, 36, and 34, and I know what you're all thinking. That young man has children? Yeah. And I've got 11 grandchildren. And there's times that Shelley and I worry about the world that our children, our grandchildren will grow up in and inherit. But it's not all bad news. Not all bad news. What we've heard tonight, Chief Black mentioned that at the highest levels in the law enforcement world, they're talking about civility. We're talking about these issues of how do we address this in our country. Alexis, I never get tired of hearing the starfish story. Thank you for sharing that. That's always impactful to me. Everybody can make a difference, one starfish at a time. And having the pleasure to work with James Tobin, he calls me a mentor, but recently I sat in on his bystander presentation. I saw the impact that bystanders can have on addressing issues of bullying, civility, and respect, crime prevention, and showing somebody else that somebody cares. So tonight, we've heard some things about Prescott. We want Prescott to be the hub of civility. But there's some great stories around the world that I'd love to share with you tonight as part of my presentation. One of the things we want to emphasize, and it's been mentioned here tonight, is learning to walk in somebody else's shoes. Now, I participated in a Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event at Embry-Riddle, and they actually walked a mile. I was wearing red high heels, and I tell you what, that was the most painful. I think being tased was painful with the taser, but wearing the high heels was painful. But walking in somebody else's shoes. Words like empathy and sympathy come to mind when we think about walking in somebody else's shoes. And there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is the ability to experience the feelings of others, where sympathy is the caring and understanding for the suffering of others. They go hand in glove. Let's think about it. Can we connect and begin to share an experience with somebody else who may be struggling in life? You know, getting back to the social media issue, Albert Einstein is quoted as saying some time ago that it has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. And as James Tobin talked about, what is the common thread? It's we're all part of this human experience, with our differences, with our politics, with our careers, with our desires and our aspirations, and yes, with our problems. We're all part of the human experience. A couple of stories I'd like to share with you. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese Air Force in a surprise attack. On December 7th of 2016, there was the 75th anniversary of that bombing. Prime Minister Abe of Japan joined President Obama in Oahu at the Pearl Harbor event to share the common healing and recovery that our two countries had come together in friendship and in allyship. And we had looked past and forgiven the conflict of the past, and we'd moved beyond so that our countries begin to share our basic humanity and our differences were resolved. We know there was pain in what occurred there. Many lives were lost. But we saw two leaders come together to showcase what leadership is, the healing of our two countries. December 13th of 1862, Fredericksburg, Virginia. Shelley and I had the ability to visit this Civil War battlefield. The Confederate Army had the high grounds in Maryland Heights, and the Union forces that were there to drive them out had the low ground from the river. Wave after wave of Union soldiers ran up that hill to try to overtake the Confederate stronghold, and they were slaughtered wave after wave. To the end of the day, that night, 8,000 Union soldiers lay dying or dead on the battlefield. Throughout the night, both armies heard the cries of the wounded for help, for comfort. And yet no one dared to cross their safety zones to go to their aid. There was a young sergeant the next day by the name of Richard Rowland Kirkland, sergeant for the Confederate Army. And he went to the general and said, I need to go, I can't take this, I need to go help these men that are dying. Provide some level of comfort. He was denied permission at first. And ultimately the general relented, because this sergeant wasn't taking no for an answer. He asked if he could carry a white flag, and that was denied. And he began to gather up as many canteens and blankets as he could carry, and he crossed the safety of the wall they were behind into the open battlefield, and he began to go to one wounded soldier after another, providing the comfort of a drink of water, a warm blanket. He couldn't change their fate, but he could provide comfort for the suffering of the moment. There's a monument to Sergeant Kirkland in Fredericksburg, a statue. He is now called the Angel of Mary's Heights because of his work to ease the suffering of a fellow human, whether they wore gray or blue. I certainly hope that's not one of the statues that are going to be torn down at some point. There's a saying by J.M. Barrie. It says, "Be kinder than necessary, for everyone is fighting some kind of battle." Henry James, a noted author, said, "There's three things we need to know in life. First, be kind. Second, be kind. Third, be kind." And it's amazing how we all smile in the same language, no matter what our differences are, no matter what our politics are. And there's hope for us in America today. If you quit watching the media, maybe, yeah, Scott, no offense. Daily Courier's okay. Yeah. One final example of how conflicts are resolved. And, you know, the media would paint our nation out as having deep racial divides. And I would argue that we've made significant progress. Do we still have work to do? Absolutely. I've been in the public safety business almost 39 years, and I've seen good work, good changes, progress made in a number of fronts. The women's movement from the 60s and 70s has made great progress. Work to do, absolutely. We've made progress. Many of you may be familiar with the book called The Green Book. This book was published in 1936, and it was a book for Negro travelers who began to have the money enough to own a car, have money to travel, but they found themselves in our country not being welcomed in many cities and wasn't receiving service by many businesses. So they created a traveler guide for black motorists. This book stayed in print from 1936 until the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. Long time for progress. Progress was made. And we don't want to look maybe back at the differences and the hatred of the past, but let's consider the hope of the future and the progress we've made. And we attend rallies like this to encourage us, to know that there's hope. Do we get it right all the time? No, Shelley has got a record of every mistake I've ever made. And there was, what, a couple of them, right? We've got a great future. We've got a great city. We have amazing leadership in our city. Chief Black, thank you so much for your service here and what you have brought to the city of Prescott. James Tobin works at the college now, and what a thrill to have him over there and the difference he's making with our college students and how he interacts with them. We'll have some bumps in the road on this road to civility and increasing respect, but it's one starfish at a time, huh, Alexis? One starfish at a time. And as it's been said here tonight, it begins with us, with me. My commitment tonight is to do a better job of being civil. Every now and then I get frustrated driving. Anybody else? Oh my God. I'm going to go to work on that. I'm going to go to work on that. As Chief Black mentioned, aggressive driving is a problem. And am I a contributor to the problem, or am I part of the solution? Thank you so much, Rhonda, for inviting me to offer a few comments. The painting in the back that's on the raffle table is a print of this Angel of Mary's Heights. It's a picture of him holding a Union soldier, offering the comfort of a drink in a frame back there. So whoever takes that home tonight, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for your time.
I've had the honor, when I say I teach civility leadership academies, I want you to know, I learn more from these kids over and over and over. For instance, when I was doing some private tutoring, which I do with I started as an organization just working with young girls, but it's expanded as I've gone into the juvenile detention school, and I started working with the boys. And I was working mostly with girls between the ages of 9 and 13. Now, it's anybody. Age 4 and 5 and 6. I want to announce this program because I'm very, very excited about it. I did this in LA. I lived most of my adult life in Los Angeles and New York City. Talk about road rage. Oh, and people say to me, I have to drive all the way to Prescott Valley, and I think, oh, you gotta be kidding. They don't even have time to develop rage. So getting back to the students and what they give to me, I'm just so honored. I had some parents that came to me and said, this one girl, they said, she's our only child, and we think she's the bully, but we don't know how to broach the subject and we're not quite sure what to say. So as I worked with this young lady, she was funny, vibrant, and had a lot of goodness in her. And she, on her own, working with her, the light bulb went off in her own head when I was talking about leadership and the 5 C's that we have for leadership. Civility, and what that means, our definition of civility is consideration, caring, and courtesy. Yes, please, thank you. No thank you, excuse me. The things we learn when we're 4 and 5 years old, and 6 and 7. So we are going to have that program with parents and children that will come to a seminar, and we'll, through the medium of drama, we're going to do a program that I had in California called Drama Play, and help these kids have some of that courtesy, consideration, and care. So she started learning some of these things: civility, courage, confidence, creativity. The main thing is, if kids start sharing their internal and external talents, they'll forget about their own self. And what are the things that matter the most? Creating healthy relationships, number 1, and how we do that. And number 2, service. And I don't mean raking grandma's leaves, although that could be really a great service to a lot of our grandparents, right? But it is the little things: smiling at someone, acknowledging someone, looking at them in the eye. These are all parts of service. And our kids, because they're attached to their phone, they don't have those communication skills, which is our 5th C. So, when our program was coming about, we're going into the schools now. And before that, working with the girls, when these parents brought me their daughter and said she's the bully, the fact that she recognized it in her own self, she said to me, and then she gave a speech at one of our graduations, she said, I just thought I was being a good leader. Coercing, manipulating, pushing, shoving, ostracizing, all of those things to get people to do what she wanted them to do. It didn't dawn on her, but at age 13, she realized that. So these are the opportunities that I have to learn. So now going into the schools, this program is also going to involve something that is near and dear to, I think, almost everybody. Dog therapy. Can we give applause to that? I've seen this work with seniors, so now we're going to bring it to the young kids and bringing it to the schools too. And I would like to announce Brietta Adams. If you could come up here with Kylie. She's going to be our dog therapist that we are bringing into the schools, and I interviewed her and Kylie. And they are wonderful, wonderful partnership here. So Brietta, do you have anything you'd like to say about your certification that you just got? Come on up here. Give her a round of applause, please.
So I'll start this with I'm not a public speaker, first off. My name's Brietta, this is Keely. Oh, sorry, it's okay. Everybody always thinks he's a girl, so he has Keely, Kylie, Chloe. Had him a year and a half, my grandma still says he's a girl. It's okay. So I'm the supervisor at Lost and Found at the Yavapai Humane Society. Talk about your bullying. It's amazing how many people think that they can come in and bully you and you're going to give them their dog for free. It doesn't work. Most of my coworkers get a really big kick of saying, I'm going to go get my supervisor. And I walk up to the counter and they all stand back and go, there she goes, because I just don't stand for it. I'm a Girl Scout leader. I work with my daisies and brownies, and I've seen their bullying. It's astounding. They're 5. You know, they shouldn't know anything about bullying. But working at the shelter, I saw Keely come in. His owners had lost their home. The husband was a very bad alcoholic, realized he had a problem, and was going into a program, and they could not have their 5 dogs with them. All the rest of the dogs were absolutely terrified. This ray of sunshine walks into the room, and I said, that's mine. I have never had such happiness as this dog coming into my life. And I have had a lot of animals. But he is astounding. He is good with all age groups. It's really amazing to watch how he works with people. I'm not a people person, that's why I work with dogs. But him going up to a 5-year-old and letting her hug him is amazing. You know, my grandmother is very disabled. She has a bad knee, she has a broken shoulder, she has the onset of Alzheimer's. She can't do much. She's stuck at the house. She does not have a driver's license. We live in Diamond Valley. It's kind of secluded. She can't go anywhere. Our whole neighborhood is hills. It's not like she can go for a walk. I come home on a regular basis when I don't bring him to work with me, and I find him asleep in her recliner chair because she can't move around, and he will just lay with her for as long as he wants, as long as she needs. And I walk in, and sometimes he gets up and comes sees me, but he makes sure it's okay with her first. So after seeing that, I decided that he really needed something to do with that ability. So I put him through the training classes, spent a lot of money, spent a lot of time, but he excelled through those training classes at an amazing rate. And last Monday, he passed the test and is fully certified with his canine good citizenship through the AKC. And he is now going in, thanks to Rhonda's help, he is going to be getting certified as an official therapy dog to go into the schools, to go into the hospitals, to go into nursing homes. I met with a lady who worked in the therapy program, and she said, well, he's gonna have to be able to sit there for up to an hour and just allow himself to be pet. And I laughed. I actually full-blown laughed. I said, are you gonna force him? Because this dog, you probably see, will go to anybody, will go up. I've been keeping him back the whole time because he sees people and goes, will you love me? He will go up with anybody and will just love to be pet and hugged, and he'll go up in your lap and he'll give you his paw to shake. He'll do anything you darn well please just to make you feel better. And it's amazing watching the dogs that come into the shelter that I see that they just want to please people and they want to make them feel better. You know, and there's something to be said for humans who want to make each other feel better, but when it's a different species that you can just see in them and feel from them that they really want nothing more than for you to be happy, makes me happy to be able to let him do that. So I want to express a wonderful thank you to Rhonda for letting us have that opportunity so that he can really go and shine and show what he can do and help kids that are going through that problem. I went through problems, and man, I wish I had him at that time. I had a cat. She was great. My cat now is not great. He's not. He's my bully. Quite honest. But you know, I want him to be able to extend that comfort that I think a lot of people need and might not realize or do realize, and maybe they're not comfortable reaching out to people, but I've never met a person who won't reach out to a dog. So I really want to express that thank you, that we can do this, and it's something that we can help with and continue to go through.
I love the dogs that are doing the dog therapy, because they'll just sit by you forever. 1 hour. I think they would sit right there for the whole day and night. Many of you may be familiar with a TV show called 13 Reasons Why. Now, we as an organization we're not advocates of this TV show, because I believe there's too much sex and too much violence in it. However, the story of what's going on in our schools is true. Just not here, it's everywhere across the United States. But as I said earlier, I chose, and I've lived in 30 different places, and I've traveled everywhere, certainly in the United States and all over the world. And I've had that opportunity, and I chose Prescott. Now, the third thing I wanted to talk to you about is gratitude, as Bree was just mentioning. I think if every single one of us took the very few minutes that it could take every day or every night to have a gratitude journal, and if you could pass this along to each and everybody that you know in Prescott, I think we'll see an increase in consideration, care, and courtesy. So I want to encourage all of you to do that, because for me, that was the thing that really led me to forgiveness. And again, any time that I feel I've been in a conflict with someone, I immediately want to go to forgiveness. Now, it's a process, but it can be sped up just by looking for the good. Chief Monahan, looking for the good in people, and there is good in everyone. When I look at children, when they are born, they are innocent, they are good. In fact, I did a column called Born to be a Loser, because that's what this whole letter was about. No one is born to be a loser. Everyone is born to be a winner. And everyone can do that. Now, you can take this home and see the 13 reasons why bullies bully, and I'll just list them off quickly. Popularity. That is still the number one thing that our kids want to have. They want to be popular at all costs, and I'm sure Detective Tobin will tell you that. Fear. Justification to validate what they're doing. One-upping. This is the biggest thing that bullies do. Envy. Since the onset of reality TV, it's made envy okay. It's not okay. It's a destroyer. Feelings of lacking. Bullies don't have confidence. Wanting power to feel important. Drugs or alcohol influence. Lacking empathy, abandonment issues, because they have a lack of love, a lack of belonging, a lack of attention. In fact, one of my podcasts is about that too, one of the columns. So I just want to tell you that our nonprofit has these as tools to make Prescott a better place. Dear Rhonda and Dr. Sherry L. McDonald, even though she's not here, I would love for you guys to give her a big round of applause, because she works for me. She lives in Westlake Village in California, where I came from, and she works from 7:30 in the morning, like so many of you, until 11:30 at night, and she gets up and does it all over again. And we write these columns, and we have an opportunity to look at all the different issues that everybody has. And we don't answer it because I am perfect. Just ask my husband. Certainly not perfect. But because of the adversity that we have both experienced, it has increased our empathy. So we can take all the bad things that happen to us in our life and turn them around and decide to make a difference in someone else's life by helping everybody in Prescott learn to look at things with a different perspective, not knowing what happens to anyone else, learning how to forgive, and learning how to be grateful. Going back to reasons why they bully victims, they mimic those that do it, passive-aggressive joking, and bigotry. Can't stand bigotry. 13 ways to help. Limit the phones. That includes parents. Limit your phone usage because communication skills are dropping off. Develop real relationships, face-to-face. Have face-to-face communication, I talked about that. Empathy training, really learning to walk in someone else's shoes. I do something similar with the Civility Leadership Academy. There's a story with every shoe I bring in, and the kids learn what that story is and how to solve that problem. Stop narcissism. This world is about me. Let me take a selfie. Okay. Living the golden rule, we know about that. Having real heroes, reporting bullying, no cheating, lying, and so-called joking. My husband coined the phrase, JK does not make it okay. And that was our campaign last year. This year, civility is the answer to bullying. No gossiping, even if it's true. I don't know where it suddenly became okay. Like, didn't anybody ever play that telephone game? We all are guilty of it once in a while, but those that do it all the time, as Alexis said, it's going to come back and hit you. You will eventually receive the same thing that you are doing when you gossip. Because people that say something to you about someone else is going to come back and say something about them to you, and so on and so on. That cycle of abuse. Be humble and forgiving and grateful. Set boundaries and develop genuine gratitude, respect, and love for others. We know that bullying is now related to suicide. Suicides have increased, and in fact I get quite a few letters on this. And we've had this in our community. And it's really tough to see a 12 or a 13-year-old commit suicide. And now we've heard on the news 8-year-olds. Suicide in 14 and under has increased by 100%. And it most often starts with bullying. And domestic violence, as we've mentioned. So, we have a surprise for you, wink wink.